Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up, yo? It's your boy, the clinician, and I'm back. And it's got a lot of things going on that I wanted to kind of keep you guys updated on. So, you know, I really am excited to be here today, and let's talk some comics, y'all. Let's get into it. So, as you guys, if you guys have been sitting under a rock for like the past, I don't know, month or so, X-Men 97, y'all. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like X-Men 97. I say it now, and I'm pretty sure I echo a lot of people's sentiments. X-Men 97 by far is the best thing Marvel has had come out in a long time, and it is not even close. I'm hoping that they wrap up the last few episodes strong. From what I'm hearing, it's a 3-part series, and from what the creator says, who Disney, y'all tripping. Y'all need to get that brother back. Unless he did something that we don't know about that's real shady and illegal, y'all need to get that brother back. Cause that brother was on point with his writing, and I'm already hearing they signed up for a season 3. Y'all need to get him back. Y'all need to make that right with DeMaio. You know, y'all need to make that right with Bo DeMaio. For real. Anyway, though, man, if y'all have not seen X-Men 97, y'all is missing out, y'all. I've been on it every week. I wish they would just come out with all the episodes so I could just binge watch it, but I know they're trying to stretch it out and milk this thing as long as they can, because it just had every episode got people in the community talking. It's like that. It is like that. So that review is going to be coming really soon. I wanted to watch the entire season in its totality, so I can really make a clear assessment on the series and really give you a breakdown and a critique on how I'm really feeling about it. Obviously, I'm loving it so far, but I really want to do it justice. I didn't want to just jump out the gun like, you know, a lot of other people is doing episode by episode, play by play. No, I want to just give you my whole analysis on everything, and that way y'all can just, you know, get my whole general thoughts on it. So with that being said, though, in honor of X-Men 97, I want to do something for you guys. I want to share with you, you know, my top 10 favorite X-Men comic books in my collection currently. So these are my favorite comics that I have currently in my collection that I'm just going to share with you guys just in honor of how dope the series is. For you guys who don't know, you know, X-Men was really what got me into comics. Like that 90s cartoon, you know, on Fox Kids. You know, I just remember waking up Saturday mornings, man, and, you know, getting a big bowl of cereal. And, you know, I actually had one of those, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I actually had my cereal bowl was actually one of those baseball helmets. I used to have a baseball helmet. I used to get a big bowl of Cheerios or Fruit Loops or Apple Jacks, or I just mix them all together, just sit there Saturday mornings, man, just watching X-Men on Fox Kids, and I was always hyped. And it was really the only thing, because my dad had me really heavy into sports at that time, so the series was so dope. Even my pops got into it, and that would be the only thing that would delay me from having to get up mad early and go run stadiums. Like, he would even, or if I had to, we would at least record it, you know, because he was getting into it, because the series was like that. The series was really like ahead of its time, honestly, and really mature for, you know, the type of demographic it was mainly targeting. So, but anyway, with that being said, man, because of that series, it really inspired me to get into comics, find out more about these characters. My dad used to take me to the comic book shop every Friday or on the weekend. We would just go kick it. You know what I'm saying? You know, get some issues, you know, check out some stuff, read some things. And it just, I don't know, it just like really inspired me to get into the floppies. And ever since I've been hooked, man, like X-Men, I really owe a lot to. Even though Thor is my favorite superhero, my favorite comic book character of all time, X-Men was my gateway. It was my gateway into it. And I think what really makes the X-Men so appealing is the fact that what it stems from. I mean, you guys probably know. I mean, it was Stan Lee's talked about it several times. I actually saw him at a convention, and he said this at a convention. I actually asked the question, you know, in terms of where did you get the idea or the concept for these characters? And he always talked about, well, during the time in the 60s, we're dealing with the civil rights movement, and, to reflect upon the sign of the times and things of that nature, he created the X-Men. When you think of the X-Men, you think of a group of people who are outcasted by society, treated differently because of their race, and just really not understood. So as a result, he created two factions. You had the X-Men led by Charles Xavier, who was more of the Martin Luther King type, more wanting to unify the mutants and integrate them into human society, and really trying to work together to, be equal. But then you had Magneto, who was more of the Malcolm X type, who was considered to be more radical in his approach, more by any means necessary in terms of how he approached, his perspective and philosophy on mutants, and really felt strongly about his people. And you know what? That's why to this day, I really never, even though I know Magneto was considered to be like an iconic X-Men villain, and yes, I'm not excusing he's done a lot of villainous things. I really would argue that I don't think Magneto was really a villain, honestly. Now, of course, comic books have skewed things, and, we can get into, details about everything that he's done that is questionable and villainous. And of course, you have those world ending type of stories. But at his core, I always felt Magneto was just all about the betterment of his people, and he really just wanted to do what needed to be done to protect his people because he was so oppressed, not just from a mutant standpoint, but you also have to understand that he was Jewish as well. So he was raised in those concentration camps, So there's a lot of things there, and and that's what makes the X-Men so cool, right? Because you can have these type of there's a lot of complexities when the characters, it's not just so black and white, it's not so cutthroat. There's that gray area, right, that really breaks the confounds of how we view what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. It's just not that cut and dry, right? There's aspects of Xavier's philosophy that were, maybe for the better of mankind and could be great, but they were also in that same breath, there were things that were kind of to his downfall. Sometimes there's a time to take a stand, there's a time to fight, and there's a time to not always have those meetings. Sometimes, action needs to be taken. But then on the flip side, of course, you have Magneto's approach where, too much action and just going in blindly without and generalizing everybody is the same, trying to hurt, others is not a good approach either. And, you could argue that that was to his detriment, but in the same breath, actions sometimes need to be taken. So it's just a really, really, really good. It's always been a really good series to me. X-Men has, in terms of just the premise of it. Of course, different writers over different times have different interpretations, but all in all, I really love the X-Men, yo. So with that being said, we're gonna get into it, and we're gonna go through my top 10. But first, we got a couple of honorable mentions. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. First honorable mention: X-Men 244. This is in the Chris Claremont era. This came out in the late 80s. And what's significant about this particular issue, and I actually got this from Grail's Comics. I got this during the auction. So shout out to Grail's Comic Show. Y'all my folk. I love y'all. I mess with y'all all the time, man. Y'all always got some good stuff. If y'all ain't been on Grail's Comics on Instagram, check them out, y'all. Give them a look. They got some good stuff there. What I really like them the most for are their auctions. They always have really good auctions where you can really snag some really solid comics for the low. You're not finding these types of comics a lot of times on a lower scale. You're paying premium or higher a lot of time for these types of books. So you can get a lot of stuff for the low on their auctions. They're fair. They package their books really well, and they make sure they get to you on time. But anyway, that's my plug for them. Anyway, and no, I'm not on their payroll. I just really love what they do, and I really support anybody in the community that is positive for the hobby. Anyway, though, X-Men 244. This is the first appearance of Jubilation Lee, also known as Jubilee. Now, Jubilee, as you guys know, for those of you guys who watch X-Men 97, is a part of the X-Men team. But back in the my first introduction to her was actually in the cartoon back in the 90s when it actually came out, the original OG 90s X-Men. And the cool thing about Jubilee's character, I always thought, was she was our eyes into the world of the X-Men. So, because she was the new kid on the block, she was, a teenager. She was trying to figure stuff out. Her power started to manifest. She was a problem child, quote unquote, because she was a mutant, and she was adopted. She went to several foster homes. And just really was estranged from her biological. So, and the X-Men, when they came into play, and they found her, because Xavier's always about teaching and educating, his students and mutants alike. I got this black dragon of the darkness flame in the camera, just not realizing that, so let me get that out of the way. But anyway, he's always about educating and teaching, people. So he wanted to recruit Jubilee to, join the X-Men and be a part of his student body. So, her coming into the fold, and we get to really see things through her eyes. And the classic first episode when she's at the mall, she's running away from home, and the Sentinels go to attack her, and then she's trying to get away from the Sentinels. And while trying to get away from the Sentinels, she meets each of the X-Men, right, who just happened to be at the mall. And I thought that was just a perfect introduction, to not only her character and some of the struggles that she dealt with, just being a teenager trying to figure it out, and kind of a coming to age story on her end, but also how they incorporated the X-Men and how she met each of them, at the mall, and they all tried to protect her. And then eventually she joins the team, and where she's remained that since. And I always loved her character, especially like in the earlier seasons. I thought she was really dope. Later, she kind of took more of a back seat. I am glad to see her having something to do in the newer series, X-Men 97, with her connection to Hotspot, or Sunspot, excuse me, and their kind of little fling that they got going on. I think that's kind of cool. I would love to see them do more of her powers, though, because I always felt her powers are kind of but, with fireworks, the power to control sparkles. But according to the comics, though, she has Omega level capability. If she ever fully realized her powers, it can become way more than just fireworks. They can become combustible explosions, and she can do a lot more damage. So I'm hoping as the series progresses, maybe they'll elevate her powers a little bit more, maybe do a little bit more with her character in terms of making her a little bit more mature in terms of how she integrates with the team and going on more missions. But this is her first appearance, X-Men 244. As you can see, Storm, Rogue, and I don't know if that's Scarlet Witch or not. I can't really tell. Might be. I don't know who that is. If you guys know who that is, let me know. It's been a while since I read this book, but I just remember her. I just know Jubilee is like one of my adult characters that I've always liked. So this is her first appearance that I wanted to pick up. All right. Next honorable mention. This cover I do know. This story I know really well. This is the X-Men 210. So this actually is in the midst of what they call the Mutant Massacre. Now, for those of you guys who don't know what the Mutant Massacre is, it was a coup that was staged really by Sinister to annihilate mutants, to start like an uprising, or to start a chaotic war. And he really did a lot of damage. He wiped out a lot of them. Because he had a lot of the Morlocks that were wiped out as a result of it. A lot of people got killed during the Mutant Massacre, and it was really bad. And it really introduced one of my favorite characters. Not this particular issue, but in that series, it introduced one of my favorite characters, which was Gambit. And he was a really big part of that storyline. And I'll go a little bit more in depth a little bit later, because there is a little bit more to that story as we progress. But the Mutant Massacre was a really dope storyline, and it was like one of the X-Men's biggest events post, Dark Phoenix saga. So for those of you guys who have not read The Mutant Massacre, I encourage you, give it a watch, give it a read, I should say. It's a really dope, comic book series or comic book storyline done by Christopher Claremont, which most of these, spoiler alert, most of these comics are from that Christopher Claremont era. To me, I feel like Christopher Claremont did like the best, X-Men, storylines, man. I really feel like he's the reason that we enjoy these characters today. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have a lot of these fleshed out storylines, these newer characters like, well, he didn't create Colossus or Nightcrawler, but I really feel like he, really did them justice with the stories that come after Giant Size X-Men. So, but Mutant Massacre, really dope storyline. You can see the cover. I love Wolverine. Got a cigar in there. Smoking that stogie. You got Colossus. The big, the muscle of the team. You know what I'm saying? You got Storm with the Mohawk Storm, which we got X-Men 97, right? Nightcrawler. Love Nightcrawler, man. I always thought he was a really dope character. And the cool thing I love about Nightcrawler, and I was just talking to my fiance about him the other day, is just the fact that his outward appearance, he looks like this demonic character, right? Like he looks like a blue devil, essentially. Even his tail has that point at the end of it, right? But the cool thing I always loved about Nightcrawler is the fact that he's so religious and he's so into his faith and he believes in God. He was raised in a monastery, Christian faith, Mystique, is his mom, but he's always had a strong faith. And I love that about Nightcrawler. I always thought that would made him a very interesting character because of how he looked, and he could appear scary, but he's really like one of the nicest and, most faith-driven of the X-Men, and trying to bridge that gap of humanity and mutants together and really believing in Xavier's dream. So I always thought that was really cool. And of course we have Rogue, and Kitty Pryde looks to be in the back as well. I always love that team. So, all right, so next honorable mention is, this was a tough one, man, because this one almost made it to my top 10. It was getting there. But next honorable mention, man, X-Men number 4. This is the first appearance of Omega Red. So this particular character, is one of Wolverine's dopest villains who is so underutilized. I feel like after the 90s, Omega Red just kind of fell off. And for those of you guys who don't know, Omega Red was like a Soviet project, and was was Russia's answer, to Weapon X in a sense. He has these tentacles that kind of pop out and, drain you of your life force. And him and Wolverine used to have some really cool bouts. And actually, I don't have it, but X-Men issue number 5, I love that cover too. And I actually like that a little bit more than this cover. Honestly, I really feel like it's one of those iconic covers, like X-Men number 5, and you got this beautiful Jim Lee art. And this is my mind's eye of the X-Men. When I think of the X-Men, this is what they look like to me. This is like the style or the aesthetic, that I love. And although I love Claremont's storytelling, and I love the art in that era too, because I grew up in the 90s, this is my mind. This is where I go to when I think of the X-Men. But Omega Red, man, was such a dope villain. For those of you guys who don't know anything about it, check him out, man. He was give it a read. X-Men issue number 4, Omega Red. I don't want to spoil the story for you too much because he does have a lot of it does tie into a lot of Wolverine's origin story. But him and Wolverine have some really cool bouts too. And I really feel like I would love to see somehow them incorporate. He's a character I would love to see in X-Men 97 for sure. I really would like. He was in the OG cartoon as well. But I would really love to see Omega Red in X-Men 97. I think he's a dope character, and I'm really hoping they put him back in comics. He's kind of just not really big. He's kind of been a scavenger, really just hasn't had anything to do in the grand scheme of it. But I always thought he was a cool looking character, and I loved his design and his skill set and his powers. Marvel, please bring Omega Red back. I think he would be really dope. So, X-Men 4. Next comic on my honorable mentions is X-Men 268. Man, this is a dope cover, man. Another 90s classic. Jim Lee, What can I say, man? Like, this is tells the origin of Wolverine's ties into World War II and how him and Captain America actually did missions together. So, for those of you guys who don't know, Wolverine's like hundreds of years old, man. Like, James Howlett is like old as dirt. Like, he's been around longer than Professor Xavier. And it's funny because when I was growing up, I used to always say Professor Xavier was the oldest, out of the team. But nope, Wolverine is the oldest mutant, in the X-Men team. Of course, there's older mutants than him, but he's the oldest mutant on the team, at least in that 90s run. So this kind of tells the story of, his missions that he did with Captain America back in the day. You kind of get a little bit of origin on their interaction and their dynamic. And of course, you got Black Widow, one of my favorite costumes for her character, especially in the 90s. So again, just pulls on the heartstrings, nostalgia. And I just love this copy. And it's actually a pretty decent condition, like a very fine, but we're not talking about grades today. We're just talking about the book. So I love this book, man, and I love the cover. I love the story. So if you guys haven't read this, give it a read. And, for those of you guys who, didn't watch this past week, this week's episode of X-Men 97, there's an Easter egg somewhere in this comic book that kind of ties into that particular episode. And, for those of you guys who know that, keep down the DL in the comment section, but we don't want to spoil it for our guys out there, but definitely give this a watch. Give this a read, I mean. This one right here was knocking on the door for top 10 too. X-Men 212. So what is the significance of this particular comic book? Well, if you look at the text, it says Wolverine versus Sabretooth, round 1. Yes, guys. This is the first time Wolverine and Sabretooth actually meet. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Sabretooth did not make his first appearance on this issue. His first appearance, he actually was an Iron Fist villain back in Iron Fist issue number 15. He used to be a villain of Iron Fist. So I didn't even know that until, I got older. But yeah, Sabretooth was an Iron Fist villain. But we all know him for his feud with Wolverine. So this particular issue, X-Men 212, is the first time they meet, or the first time you find out about their connection and them meeting. So, this is what started this is the issue where they meet and starts that feud, that classic feud. And to me, Wolverine and Sabretooth, and I'm gonna do a video of this. They're my top 3 of greatest comic book feuds of all time. I feel like their fights are the stuff of legend. Like, when they go at it, flesh is getting ripped off, blood is gushing everywhere, guts is getting ripped out. Somebody ain't walking away from this fight. They trying to take each other out. Somebody ain't gonna make it. And the crazy thing is, both of them got healing factors, so it's like, man, they can go for days just scrapping it out, and they fights be gory, man. I love when Wolverine and Sabretooth be going at it, man. Like, them bouts, man. Oh my God. So I love this. And you can even see on the cover, right? Wolverine all tattered up, claws bloody, backdrop, bloody black backdrop. Man, John Byrne did his thing on this, man. But love this cover. Love this comic book issue. First time Wolverine and Sabretooth meet. Or starts the feud, I should say, because they already had history. Next honorable mention. This was a tough one too. X-Men issue 134. This is the first appearance of the Dark Phoenix. Now, who is the Dark Phoenix? Dark Phoenix is Jean Grey, possessed by the entity known as the Phoenix. The Phoenix is a cosmic entity in the Marvel Universe that represents all life in the Marvel Universe. And, she's drawn to Jean Grey and is very, connected to her. And as a result, she ends up getting the powers of the Phoenix, which is, when she gets those powers, becomes nigh omnipotent. And initially she starts off, good and helping out the X-Men, with her newfound powers. But eventually, the Phoenix also, in possessing Jean, also experienced emotion for the first time and was able to be, manipulated by the Hellfire Club and was turned into their Dark Queen. And once she becomes the Dark Queen and, develops these emotions, these negative feelings, and gets jealous of, certain relationships that manifest, especially with her and Scott. She ends up turning into the Dark Phoenix as, basically starts to attack the X-Men. And initially working with the Hellfire Club, she ends up turning on the Hellfire Club as well, and would eventually just start spazzing out like everybody getting his work. Everybody getting his work. When the Phoenix come out, ain't nobody walking away. Like, she's taking everybody down. Like, nobody's rocking against the Phoenix. Like, the Phoenix is that chick. Like, one of my favorite X-Men villains, the Dark Phoenix, man. You was not messing with the Phoenix. Like, love this cover. Love the character. I love what Chris Claremont did, and awesome issue. My goal is to try to collect, and this is really my favorite saga of the X-Men, is the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga. So my goal is to collect all the issues of the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga written by Christopher Claremont. So I'm getting there. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. All right, my last honorable mention is going to be X-Men 201. So what is the significance of this issue? So this is the first appearance of Baby Cable. Nathan Summers, also known as as Cable, right? He becomes Cable later as he gets older. And, basically this is his first appearance. But really more important than that, this is the issue where Cyclops was going through some changes. And what I mean by that, during this time, after the Phoenix saga, Cyclops loses Jean. Like, Jean, she is left for dead. During this period, he's going through some things, and he meets this woman, Madeline Pryor, who looks like Jean Grey, but turns out to be a clone created by Sinister, and they end up having a child, which during this time we don't know, that she's a clone. But with all these changes going on in Cyclops' life, Christopher Claremont was really setting his character up to basically kind of exit the team, for however long, and kind of make way for some newer characters to come in. Because at that point, Cyclops' story was kind of done, and Christopher Claremont kind of wanted to keep things fresh. So to give him an out, Cyclops ended up, having some conflict, and was not making the best decisions as a leader at that time. And Storm low-key kind of called him out on that, like, yo, I think it's time for, new leadership, and the direction that you're headed in just doesn't seem to be the direction that we need to go. And there was that inner conflict. So there was that fight for leadership, and they fought. I mean, even though the cover shows him blasting her, they didn't use powers during this fight. And, which makes it interesting because, of course, if Cyclops and Storm use their powers, as much as I like Cyclops, I think he's a cool character, he's not seeing Storm. I mean, come on, y'all. Like, he's not beating Storm. Especially, she controls the weather. She's, you're not messing with her. I mean, Cyclops is a tactical genius. I'm sure he would put up a decent, resistance to some degree and hold out as long as he could, but he's not seeing Storm. I'm sorry. But anyway, they end up having a fight for leadership within the team. And, I don't want to spoil it for you, but the outcome is actually a very interesting outcome to this particular fight. And, we'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil who wins this fight in a hand-to-hand combat between Cyclops versus Storm. But for you guys who do you guys think would win, though? Like, in your opinion, like, who do you think should win this fight? Let me do that, because some of you guys probably already know who would win that fight. Who do you guys think should win in a hand-to-hand fight between Cyclops and Storm? Hand-to-hand combat. Write that in the comment section. All right, guys. So we've gone through honorable mentions. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this. We're going to get into my top 10 X-Men comic books of all time. Oh, yeah, it's going down. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up on my list, this is probably my oldest comic book that I have in my collection. As like I said before, I'm a huge 90s X-Men guy, so a lot of stuff I gravitated towards aesthetically was the 90s art style of Jim Lee. I'm also a Christopher Claremont fan, so that 70s through 80s run also was something I really enjoyed during that time as I backtracked on reading earlier issues. Nothing against the 60s stuff or the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby stuff, or not Jack Kirby. It was Stan Lee and what was my man's name? I forgot my man's name, but it wasn't Jack Kirby. But the Stan Lee era of comic books in the 60s. It was cool for what it was, but being all honest, I don't know. It didn't really appeal to me as much as some of the other stuff during that era, like Journey into Mystery or the Avengers during the 60s was dope. Fantastic Four was pretty cool from some of the stuff I read in the 60s. But the X-Men stuff was, it was okay. All right, but one thing I will say is the cool thing I love about the 60s X-Men was their comic book covers. And you cannot deny that they had all the classic first appearances are there. You have all that iconic stuff, right? So for me, this is more about the character, and I love the comic book cover more so than the actual storyline, when it comes to my collection, because I do love this character. This character in particular is the Juggernaut. So this is X-Men issue 32. This is the earliest X-Men issue I have, and this is one of my favorite X-Men characters, the Juggernaut. Man, Cain Marko, man. What can I say about this dude? This guy's something else, man. He hates his stepbrother with a passion, man, and even more so. So, for those of you guys who don't know, the Juggernaut is Professor Xavier's stepbrother. So, yes, when Professor Xavier grew up, his mom ended up, marrying Cain Marko's father. And for the most part, Cain Marko, like his stepdad was cool with Professor Xavier, which was a problem with Cain Marko, who felt that his father was giving Professor Xavier more attention. He always felt like he was the good child and the good son. And Cain Marko was the black sheep of the family, which caused issues in conflict when they were younger. And then even more so when he found out that Professor Xavier had a gift. So, of course, there was an accident at the house. I think their house burnt down, and, Professor Xavier went to go try to save, his stepfather, but, he, couldn't save him. And instead, he saved Cain Marko. So his stepfather died, but Professor Xavier saved Cain Marko. And of course, Cain Marko that hate made it even more furious because, you would think he would be grateful, right? For, his stepbrother saving him, but no. He is not with that. He's like, no, you weakling. I don't like you. Stay away from me. Well, they end up joining. They end up going into the army together. I believe it was the Korean War, if I'm not mistaken. But they end up going to this temple after retreating from a army or combat, and they hide out in this temple. And while they're in the temple, Cain Marko stumbles upon the gem of Cyttorak. Now, Cyttorak is a magical entity. So if you ever heard of a guy called Doctor Strange, and he's always talking about the Vishanti and all these magical spirits. Well, Cyttorak is one of those, and he's like in a whole nother dimension, kind of like Dormammu. And basically it has all this has a crazy, stupidly OP. If you ever come into like the 616 universe, it will be a problem. But because he's not there, he has other artifacts. And each of those entities, like the Vishanti, Cyttorak, and others alike, have their own like artifact that, has pieces of them in it. So the gem of Cyttorak was basically hidden in that temple, and Cain Marko, read the inscription. I'm paraphrasing, kind of like Thor's hammer. Whosoever reads the inscription shall have the unstoppable power of the Juggernaut, something to that extent. So he reads the insignia, and then basically the temple collapses. Professor Xavier tries to save Kane, but is unable to, and he escapes and basically leaves Kane Marco for dead. Well, Kane Marco eventually, what we find out, because he's read the incantation, he ends up becoming an unstoppable Juggernaut, and that's exactly what he is. I mean, there's very few instances outside of like reality warping that you can stop the Juggernaut. Like, he is, once he gets a momentum going, you're not stopping him. Infinite strength, crazy durability, never tires, never hungers, none of that. Just the unstoppable force. Not too many people that can see the Juggernaut. But love this character. This is his third appearance, I believe, during that era. I need to get his first two, but I like this cover because you actually see the front side of him. His first two appearances was kind of showing his back as he's fighting the X-Men. As you can see, he's towering over all the original X-Men, Iceman, Beast, Marvel Girl, who is also Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Angel. So I really love this, man, just showing his dominance over the X-Men. So I love the Juggernaut, man. Dope villain. Another villain I'm looking forward to seeing in X-Men 97 eventually. I mean, Juggernaut's got to pop up eventually, right? He's an iconic X-Men character. All right, next on my list is X-Men issue 129. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of Kitty Pryde and the Hellfire Club. So Kitty Pryde, for those of you guys who don't know, is basically the 80s version of Jubilee in the sense that she was the new kid on the block. And basically you're seeing a lot of the X-Men through her eyes. Like, she was the new girl, teenager or young adult, somewhere in between. And, her power, she has the ability to phase through objects. So, she's kind of like, can go through anything. And lately, I've loved what they've done with her character, especially like the assassin style that they've given her, where she's like doing like Black Ops missions and just, Kitty Pryde can be getting off, she's a problem, man. Kitty Pryde's dope. And, of course, she has a relationship with Colossus. So, her and Peter Rasputin have their thing going, but just a cool character, and she had a big prominent role in Days of Future Past. Her and Wolverine did. So love the character of Kitty Pryde. Really dope character. And then of course the Hellfire Club, they're mainly known for really two main characters, Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw. They had other characters there as well that were really dope. Like you had what's the one guy? I forgot their names, but you had one guy who basically was a key part in the Dark Phoenix saga, who basically could manipulate and cause like hallucinations. And he got into Jean's mind and kind of did some things where he manipulated her into believing that she was his bride or his husband or his wife or whatever. And basically she believed that she had always been with him for however many years, and really, which is saying a lot because Jean is like a S-tier telepath. So, and she had the powers of the Dark Phoenix. So for him to be able to manipulate her in that way, for her to get to see things in a different, like through his perspective and the hallucinations and the realities he created, kind of like Mysterio. He's kind of like a mutant Mysterio. Like, if you could think of Mysterio, how he creates those things, but the only difference is it's more of an innate, a mutant ability as opposed to like props and studio stuff that he got from the movies and this tech that he created. So anyway, Hellfire Club is really dope. You have Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost. Now, Emma Frost is like also another S-tier telepath who eventually would go on to have a relationship with Cyclops, and they had, she's also was known as the White Queen, so they had their thing going, and really to me brought the darker side of Cyclops during that whole Krakoa era, and he became more of like a Magneto-like character. It was some really good storytelling. So Emma Frost is a dope character, and Sebastian Shaw was the leader of the Hellfire Club at the time. He was the king. All of them kind of went by cards. So you had the king, the queen, the joker, the jack, the ace, and all that. But he was the basically the leader of the club, and his power was to basically absorb energy. So you could hit him, and the more you hit him, the more energy absorbed, the stronger he got. And you know, Sebastian Shaw was a dope character too. And I always like their, I mean, even though they're not on the cover of this, the Hellfire Club, I always like their costumes. They always had like these 1800s like style costumes from like back in the colonial era, and it looked really cool. Like, you know, I always liked their like that style that they wore. I always thought it was pretty interesting, and they stood out. But you know, this issue I love, and shout out to Ali at Comics, man. Ali Comics, that's my guy. Like, I got this issue from him, you know, on his Instagram. He's a dope guy. If you get a chance, check out Ali Comics, man. He has some really cool stuff. Or I'm sorry, Ali Collectibles. My fault, not comics. Ali Collectibles, ALI Collectibles. Check him out. He's a dope dude, man. He'll dope deals, works with you, really great guy. Got this for a steal. Really did. It's a 6.0, but I love it. It presents really well, and I got this for a really good price. So check out Ali Collectibles. But love this comic book. Love this issue. All right, next up on my list is X-Men 2 issue 221. What is the significance of this issue? Well, this is the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. Oh, yes, guys. And for those of you guys who have not been watching X-Men 97, Mr. Sinister makes an appearance in there, but, you know, man, if you guys been watching X-Men 97, he's the guy that has been kind of working the shadows. You know, he has that blue suit with the white pale skin. He was the guy who cloned Jean Grey and created Madeline Pryor. You know, which the whole point of that clone was so he could reproduce, because he felt like if Jean and Cyclops ever had a baby, it would be the most powerful mutant on Earth, which, I mean, Cable dang near was, man. I mean, if it wasn't for the techno-organic virus that Sinister created and gave to Apocalypse for him to implant in Cable, yeah, it will be a problem, because Nathan Summers is like that. And if you really want to, for those of you guys who would like to kind of know what Cable's powers would look like if he wasn't inhibited by the techno-organic virus, look up a character by the name of X-Man. That is Cable in an alternate timeline, uninhibited by the techno-organic virus, and that'll give you an implication of what he can do. Also, Cable in Deadpool issue number, if you read issues 1 through 5, that is also another testament to Cable's power. Like, dude, like, is unhinged. Like, when he just like unloads, says techno organic virus be damned, I'm just gonna unhinge it. Because the whole thing with Cable is, and getting back to Sinister, who created the virus, the techno organic virus basically, if it takes over Cable, he becomes like one of like Apocalypse's mindless zombies, you know. And that's why you always see that metal arm that if you ever see Cable, he has that metal arm. That's the virus. That's the virus trying to take over. So in order to stop the virus, or slow it down at least, he uses telepathy and telekinesis to slow down. He uses his mutant powers to slow it down. But by always having to constantly use his powers to slow down the virus, he's not able to use the full scope of his abilities. Anyway, though, Mr. Sinister, man, this comic book suffers from him not being on the cover. I really feel this is one of the most undervalued comic books in like Marvel. Like, I feel like it's gonna go up eventually, but this is definitely undervalued. Like, and I think it suffers because Mr. Sinister is not on the front cover. If he was on the front cover of this will be without question shooting to the moon. But because he's not on the front cover, it suffers. But I love this issue. I love Mr. Sinister, man. I love his character. It's, again, introduced to him in the X-Men cartoons, man. Remember that saga with the Savage Land? Oh my God, that was so dope. And he kidnapped Professor Xavier and Magneto. and the X-Men had to go save them. Oh, it was so dope, man. Mr. Sinister is a dope villain. He's always calculating. He's actually, his real name is Nathaniel Essex. He's a scientist that always studied genetics, and he was always infatuated by it. He's actually older than Wolverine, if I'm not mistaken. Might be the same age around about, but I think he's older than Wolverine. He's been around for a while, and actually had a really good storyline. When you find out that there's like multiple versions of Sinister, I think that was a really cool storyline as well. But man, Mr. Sinister, man, what can I say? Great X-Men villain, one of my favorites, and it's signed by Christopher Claremont. I mean, what can you say? I love the fact that it's signed by Christopher Claremont. Kind of salty about this grade. I feel like it should have been a little bit higher, but it is what it is. But I love this issue, man. Mr. Sinister is one of my favorite X-Men villains. And yeah, man. Hey, X-Men issue 221. Check it out. Next on my list is X-Men issue 133. This is the first solo Wolverine cover. So this is also during the Dark Phoenix saga. So as I stated before, the Hellfire Club had ended up kidnapping Jean Grey and basically brainwashing her, manipulating her into believing she was a part of the Hellfire Club and became their Black Queen. And, you know, during that time, the X-Men infiltrated the Hellfire Club's headquarters to try to get Jean back. And all the X-Men ended up getting captured except for Wolverine. Or initially Wolverine was left for dead. You think he's like, he didn't make it, but he was actually knocked underneath the sewers. And, you know, basically this is Wolverine trying to, you know, claw his way back to save his fellow X-Men. And he's fighting the Hellfire Club's minions and just taking them out, man, being the badass that Wolverine is. He's taking all comers, and he's the best at what he does, because what he does ain't not nice. My man is a beast. Wolverine, and who's looking forward to that Deadpool Wolverine movie, y'all? I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. I think Ryan Reynolds is gonna knock this bad boy out the park. From what I've seen with the previews, I'm loving it. The only thing that I'm asking for that they better give us, Ryan Reynolds. I know I'm just a, you know, normal comic book fan, your average comic book fan, man. So I have no power, no pull, but I'm saying it right now. We better get this mask. We better get this mask. I need to see the mask. I need to see it. I like the costume with Wolverine. I like what he's wearing, but I need to see that mask. We had not seen that mask yet. So my speculation is you're saving it because you want to surprise everybody, but I want to see that mask. If I don't see that mask, that's gonna be an issue. Other than that, loving the previews, loving what you're doing with the character, love the stance you're taking against the powers to be, and standing your ground and speaking up for the fans and allowing this to be the project that you want it to be, and hopefully that is what the fans want. But I love this issue, and I actually want to think about getting this graded. This is actually like, I think has 9.8 potential, guys. Look how clean this is. Real sharp. Real sharp stuff. So, X-Men 133, this is the issue right before the Dark Phoenix is revealed. So, or the Black Queen is revealed. Or Dark Phoenix. Yeah, Dark Phoenix, right before Dark Phoenix is revealed. All right, next issue. Woo! This is getting tough, y'all. This is getting tough. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth between these two. Okay. X-Men 213. Oh yeah. Now remember me telling you guys earlier, X-Men 212 was the first issue that Wolverine and Sabretooth actually meet up. Okay, so you see that issue, Wolverine's clothes are all tattered up, he looks bloody backdrop, claws bloody, just looking like he done been through the ringer, y'all. But one thing was missing on that front cover. Victor Creed, my man Victor Creed, was missing on that front cover. But he's on this one. And oh boy, he ain't playing around with little man, boy. He going in on my boy Wolverine. This is my definitive Wolverine versus Sabretooth cover, boy. Now, there's been a lot of them. There's a lot of great ones. Now, there's a couple other classics in there. You know, I ain't gonna, like, there's some more. but this is mine. This is my baby right here. I love this one. I actually want to get this one rated too. But this one right here. This one right here. This right here. This is my Definitive Wolverine versus Sabretooth cover. Love they bounce, man. What more can I say? They're tied. They're bonded, man. They're forever. What kind of man you know has made it his mission? Peep this. This man right here has made it his mission every year on Wolverine's birthday. He got to kill somebody close to Wolverine. He got to kill somebody close. Whether it's one of his girlfriends, but whatever. He killing somebody. Somebody got to die. And they fight every year on Wolverine's birthday. What kind of madness is this? What kind of madness? I tell you. Madness, I say. Who does that? Victor Creed do that. Victor Creed do that. Victor Creed ain't playing. Victor Creed ain't playing. Wolverine ain't playing with him either. No. I ain't gonna say Wolverine ain't no. Hey, Wolverine, he don't give it to him, but I'm just saying. This man right here, he a problem. That's all I'm saying. All right, next up on my list. Here it goes. Now, this one I'm really proud of. This is an example of patience. And what I mean by this is a book that's always been very pricey. It's a first appearance. It's very high. It's very expensive. No matter what grade you're getting in, you're always finding yourself paying a premium. Well, during that drought, late last year, late December of last year, 2023, early January 2024, when comic book prices was just kind of like at an all-time low. I happened to see this on eBay because for the longest time I was not getting this book because it was just too dang expensive. I saw this book on eBay for like a ridiculous price. I was like, whoa, that's what they doing? That's what we doing? That's what we doing. So I was like, man, if this book can last, you know how you gotta get that paycheck right. If this book can last like one more week, just one more week to that paycheck clear, I think I can get it. So I was like, okay, give me 1 week, So I waited. I was checking every day, eBay. I was like, oh man, please God, let this thing be here. Please let this be here. If it's meant for me, it's meant for me. And then sure enough, it was. Like that Friday came, that check couldn't come fast enough, and I jumped on it, man. This was a dope deal that I got for this book. Even though it's a mid-grade, it was still a good deal. So this, my friends, X-Men 101, the first appearance of the Phoenix. So this is not the Dark Phoenix. This is the original Phoenix in her costume. So this is before Jean gets turned to the dark side. So like I said, initially, she was actually left for dead. Like there were X-Men were doing a mission, and basically, in order to save her team, Jean sacrificed herself from a crash or an explosion, and ended up emerging during that time. The Phoenix possessed her. She emerged as the Phoenix, and there we go. In the TV show, it was a little different. They changed it up where the ship was about to crash. Jean ended up saving them, and then she was possessed by the Phoenix and came out there. But either way, it involves Jean saving her team and being left for dead initially, but she comes back as the Phoenix. Kind of makes sense, right? Kind of poetic, because that's what Phoenix do. They rise from the ashes. After death, they come back reborn. And for a while, she was helping the team out in this costume. What do you guys? And let me ask you guys this question. What do you guys prefer? Do you prefer the green and gold or of the regular Phoenix costume, or do you prefer the red and gold of the Dark Phoenix costume? Spoiler alert: Dark Phoenix. There is another Dark Phoenix comic book in my top 10. So I'll show you that costume more accurately. But what do you prefer? So we'll get a better read on that. But this is one of my favorite issues, man. Like I said, I want to collect all of the Phoenix Saga and the Dark Phoenix comics. X-Men 101, y'all. Phoenix. This next comic book to me is my number one most underrated comic book in all of X-Men. It's not even an X-Men comic book, but it's just the most underrated in terms of value and what it brings to the table. This comic book is X-Men number 19. This is the first, not X-Men number, you know what? I messed up, guys. I made a mistake. I made an error. Give me 1 second, because I pulled out the wrong comic book. Hold that thought. My apologies. I picked the wrong comic book because, and that is a dope comic. X-Men 19 is the first appearance of the Four Horsemen. So this is the first appearance of the Four Horsemen. It's a dope comic book, but that's not what I meant to put in my list. The comic book I meant to put in my list was X-Men X Factor number 6. This is the comic book I meant to pull out. This is the first appearance of Apocalypse, guys. This is the issue that introduced the character of Apocalypse. Arguably not, though, because prior to that, X Factor issue number 5, Apocalypse pretty much takes a full appearance. Like, he has like a whole full page spread showing him as Apocalypse. He's not even in the shadows. Like, you can see Apocalypse. Like, he's there. So that technically was his first appearance, but a lot of people, like the community, dictate. So they're saying this is his first appearance, and they identify X Factor number 5 as a cameo appearance. So X Factor number 5 is the cameo. This is identified as the first appearance of Apocalypse, and of course he's on the front cover. So I'm not mad at it. But really, the significance of this comic book, X Factor issue number 6, first appearance of Apocalypse. To me, Apocalypse it don't get no better when it comes to iconic X-Men villains. I mean, his whole philosophy on might makes right, and only the strong should survive, like that whole Darwinism type of philosophy is what makes him just that dude. Like, Apocalypse to me is such an iconic villain for the X-Men, and I love his character, man. Like, the Age of Apocalypse, I grew up in the 90s. The Age of Apocalypse was like so dope. Like, he was just that dude. He was just a monster in that whole series. He was shutting it down, man. And, of course he has ties even with my guy Thor, man. Like, Thor actually ended up, Yarborn has an origin tying in with Apocalypse. So that axe that Thor uses, yeah, that's tied in with Apocalypse, because they fought back in the day. Apocalypse, man, is just a great villain. His Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, transforming Angel into Archangel, and just so many iconic moments. Even bringing Gambit back to life, which I actually hope they, spoiler alert, sorry, X-Men 97, Gambit dies, but I hope they bring him back as the Horseman of Death. Like, Apocalypse brings him back from the grave as Death. That would be so dope, because they did that in the comics. That was really cool. But anyway, Apocalypse, man, such an underrated comic book. The value on this thing, you get these, you get this stuff for like, you can get this book for like under $100. Like, it's a steal. Like, if you really look, you can get this book for like the low, like $20, $30, depending on how it degrade or whatever. But this is like crazy low, and it's baffling to me, because this is an iconic villain, probably top 3 easily, one of the best X-Men villains. Maybe only, I mean, you want to put Magneto as number 1, great, but I mean, because he is that, I mean, a lot of people consider him a villain, and he is iconic. But Apocalypse, man, come on. Like, he's had so many like stories, and he's done so much damage to the X-Men, and even being a part of their council and later stories, and even the newer stuff that Hickman did later down the road. Oh my God, he ripped Apocalypse like chef's kiss on that one. He killed it. Apocalypse is that guy, man. Apocalypse is really that dude, and his powers are just like endless. I mean, with the celestial tech that he has, he can, he make himself big, small, infinite energy, never tires, create, like super strength, durability. There's really nothing Apocalypse can't do except for reality warp. I mean, he's just that guy. So, very underrated, probably the most underrated, in my opinion, first appearance in like X-Men history, like, is Apocalypse. Next on my list is a book that may not be the most valuable price-wise, but is the most valuable in terms of my mind's eye of X-Men. So this is X-Men #1. Yes, this comic book sold like a million, like record-breaking sales for this comic book. Excuse me, when it first came out. Like when Jim Lee and Stan first came, Jim Lee and Stan, when Jim Lee and Christopher Claremont relaunched X-Men Volume 2, or Volume 3, I think, yeah, it would be Volume 3. When they relaunched X-Men Volume 3, this is the highest selling, and I believe still is the highest selling comic book of all time. You know, like first issue. So, and they came out with 4 other covers in addition to this, so 5 covers total. So this actually, they have a duplicate of this one. This is like the collector's edition, and they have 3 other covers in addition to that. So it's 5 total, and basically all of them connect to form like one scene. And I have all of them with the exception of Magneto, which I've been, procrastinating on getting that one to complete my run of that. So really all of them together make this like my favorite, like one of my favorite X-Men covers of all time, because it just kind of pulls on the heartstrings. This is my favorite look for Cyclops. Like I love this costume. Like this, like the newer stuff, the Krakoa costume and all that in the 80s look is cool, but when I think of Cyclops, this is what I go back to. This is the look that I remember Cyclops for. The Wolverine costume is different. It's the Tiger Stripe one for me is the one that I remember, but the art style and the design is still like there, and it's still iconic to me. So this is what I envision when I think of the X-Men is this aesthetic, this design, give or take the costumes. But definitely for Cyclops, for sure. And for Wolverine, this definitely the Tiger Stripe. But the aesthetic and how he's drawn, outline-wise, design-wise, definitely screams to me like 90s. So this is the X-Men I grew up on. So because of that, the significance of this comic book, means a lot to me, because this is what I think of when I think of X-Men. And who remembers, guys, back in the day, when they had the Pizza Hut commercials, right, for the X-Men, and you could buy when you bought a personal pan kids pizza, it came with like a X-Men cup, right, and then you got a X-Men animated series comic book. Like, who remembers that? For those of you, who remembers that, guys? I don't know. I had one. I don't know what happened to it. It probably got torn up somewhere. It's gone. It's lost in the, toy fairies that got it, but I had that back in the day, man. That was so dope. Who remembers that commercial and they're turning like you have the kids at the table, and then one of the kids shoots out Optic Blast, another one has Wolverine's claws, and one has Jean's telepathy. It was dope, man. X-Men was just so lit. Like, I don't know. X-Men 90s was like that show, man. It just was. It just was, man. I love X-Men 90s. So, guys, we're almost done. I have 2 comic books left. And the first one I'm going to show you, this one is staying in the PC for life, but this is X-Men 135. This is the first appearance, or not even the first appearance, this is the first cover appearance of the Dark Phoenix in the Dark Phoenix costume. So, as I was saying before, like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the green and gold, or the red and gold? Put that in the comment section. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the Phoenix costume, the original one, the gold and green, or do you prefer the Dark Phoenix, the red and gold? Like, what do you prefer? I kind of go back and forth depending on what day you ask me. It kind of depends, but for the reason this one's so high and is my number 2 is the fact that it's just such an iconic cover. I mean, she's literally showing her dominance over all of the X-Men. Like, you see all of the X-Men laying there unconscious, just like defeated, and she's holding the X-Men logo, just crushing it. Like, I run this. Y'all ain't messing with the Dark Phoenix, man. I got this. I'm running this. I am Phoenix. Who are y'all? Y'all beneath me. Like, I run this. I'm above all this crap. And showing off her dominance, her omnipotence, that dark side. And I loved it. I loved every bit of this. To this day, still, to me, what made Jean the most interesting run that Jean had was the whole Phoenix saga. And I can't... Now, I like what they're doing with her in the cartoon, but in terms of comic books, I never was really into Jean outside of Phoenix. Like, I don't know, like even it just she was just always kind of like, she was Scott like Cyclops' wife or girlfriend or love interest. She was just never that interesting to me. But with the Phoenix Saga, I always thought that's when she was at her apex. You know, I always felt that way. I don't know, just me, just my personal opinion, but love this though. Iconic cover and designed by the legendary Christopher Claremont. Oh man, love that guy, man. Writ X-Men to perfection. All right. Now, the last comic book on my list is a character that I immediately said that's my favorite character. As soon as I saw that character on the theme song, you heard that theme song come on and show all the characters. As soon as I saw that character, I was like, that's my character. And then when I saw him on Night of the Sentinels, I was like, oh, that is definitely my favorite character. That is definitely my favorite character. Off rip in X-Men. It has remained my favorite X-Men character to this day. That's why it kind of saddens me, because X-Men 97. You went there. You went there. You went there. And I can't get mad at you, because the way he went out, you did the character justice, and I appreciate that, because you was having him look like a simp for the first 4 episodes, and I was not feeling that. But you redeemed yourself. For those of you guys who know what I'm talking about, episode 5, remember it. My man, the Cajun himself, Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit. Mon ami. The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it. It's my bad, yo. If I had some Mad Dog, I pour it down for my man, yo, because y'all took out a real one. But Gambit, man. Gambit, to me, is one of the most interesting characters. Not because he's not the most powerful. He's not the most intelligent. Although he is smart. He is clever. And his powers are dope. But it's the mystique of Gambit. It's the fact that he never really fit in. He was always kind of that oddball that was always trying to find his way. He had that loner mentality, but he still always did the right thing. When push came to shove, Gambit was going to do the right thing. And what initially intrigued me about the character, I mean, was the costume was dope. And what I thought was cool about his costume kind of says it all. If you look at his costume, especially in the animated series, he is the only character who didn't have the X symbol on him. If you look at every character, even Wolverine, as much of a loner as Wolverine is, and he does what he want to do, he's a rogue and all this, he still wore that X-Men logo. Gambit never wore that. He was always his own man. And he never conformed. Because there's always that Willy Wonky portray the X-Men kind of vibe that you got from him. You never fully knew what Gambit was thinking. But you knew that Gambit was going to be Gambit. And he would do what he needed to do. When push came to shove, Gambit was going to be right there to help you out. And I love the fact that Gambit always had this swag to him. He was always cool, calm, and collected. He turned up quick now, but he had that swag to him, man. Like, he just, the long trench coat, you know, he had the pink on, but he was rocking that crap, man. He was rocking that ish, man. He made pink look cool. You being the dude in the 90s wearing pink, people was like, what? But Gambit made it look cool, man. Like, he made it dope. I was like, yo, this dude is on some next. And he used playing cards, man. He had the playing cards that he would charge up and detonate. Oh, Gambit was just that dude, man. And then, of course, he had Rogue. You know what I'm saying? And his relationship with Rogue was always kind of cool, man. It was poetic because as much as he loved her, he could never touch her, right? And it was like that, you know, will they, won't they type of vibe. And I always thought that was kind of intriguing, and their whole relationship was cool. And it was so dope when they finally got married, and how they went about it was just like crazy. You know what I'm saying? But it was cool when they finally got married and tied the knot, and he took her and everything. But Gambit to me has always been like my favorite X-Men character. Like, I just love his personality, and he shows you that you can always be yourself and do you could do the right thing and still be you. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to conform to the societal norms or what people tell you to do or should or shouldn't do. And he always did things for the greater good. Now, he was manipulated when he first came into play by Mr. Sinister during, as I stated before, the Mutant Massacre. He led the Warlocks or the Morlocks to their death, essentially, unbeknownst to him. And the X-Men would find out later and actually outcast him from the team for a while. He actually ended up getting excommunicated, but he would have come back and everything. But but yeah, man, Gambit was just always a dope character. I loved it when he had his own comic book. You got a little bit more of his background. Grew up in the swamplands of New Orleans with the Thieves Guild versus the Assassins, and the coup d'etat they had to make to try to, seal the deal with the Assassins Guild. And I mean, the Thieves Guild tried to, do a peace treaty with the Assassins by him marrying Bella, or supposed to marry Bella. Then that whole thing went kind of left. But it was I don't know, Gambit, man, was just always a dope character to me, man. I always loved his character. Sad to see him get taken out, but the way if he gonna go out, that's the way you go out. He blew up the Sentinel, was a big part in saving Genosha. And man, that last episode, man, that hit, man. When they had that funeral, oh man, that was Nightcrawler did his thing on that. He did a great sermon, but Gambit, man, like, if y'all don't bring it back in the second season, though, I'm gonna be pissed. Y'all got to bring Gambit back. Y'all got to write that. Cable, somebody got to go back in time and get my mans to come back. Because I feel like we was just starting to get the Gambit that I remembered in episode 5, and only for y'all just to kill him off. And I understood why y'all killed him off, but y'all got to bring my mans back, man. Y'all just can't have him go out like that. And I'm starting to get into that X-Men 97 territory, so I'm going to shut it down on that, because I want to really give my analysis on that after I watch the last 3 episodes. I don't think Gambit's coming back on the last. Just FYI, I don't think he's coming back this season. He may not even come back until like the end of the second season, if he does come back. And they did sign on for season 3, so maybe even there. But y'all got to bring him back at some point. Anyway, though, man, Gambit, man, Remy LeBeau. And he was my man's on Marvel vs. Capcom, man. I used to always use him on all the Capcom games like X-Men, Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Royal. I even got a Mayfix Gambit, man. Like, Gambit is my dude, man. Like, Remy LeBeau, that is my guy. Gambit, that is my guy, man. Like, the Cajun, don't mess with the Cajun. L'éternellement infini, That's my guy, man. Man, see emotion. That's my guy. Love me some Gambit, boy. Gambit is that dude. Be putting it down, man. Be whooping up on people, man. So Gambit is that guy. So this is my number 1 X-Men comic. My favorite, my baby. I got this one graded myself. Came back at 9.4, but I don't care, because this is my favorite character, my favorite X-Men, and that is my X-Men top 10. If you've been with me this long, thank you guys for rocking with me. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. It's been real. I'm gonna be, posting more material soon, and you guys tell me, what is your top 10 or top 5 or top 3 favorite X-Men comic books of all time? Who are your favorite X-Men characters? Put it in the comment. Let me know what's going on. But until then, guys, see you, Moshe. The name's the clinician. Remember it. Peace.